And welcome to today's segment of The Power of Money. And as I said on my last show, the subject of today's broadcast is Battered Women, Battered Lives, Part 2. My last show, I had the director of the Artemis Center with headquarters in Dayton, Ohio, a woman with over 3 decades of experience in dealing with battered women, families, children, and it was a powerful, powerful interview. Let me begin by saying to you that I well recognize that the subject of battered women is in many sectors taboo. It's like the dirty little secret in the box. It's like the elephant in the living room. It's like the Pandora's box. But yet and still, this issue is not only alive and well, viewers, but growing. And so I want you to just sit down for a minute, including you men who watch. The focus of the show today is on women being battered. But I'm very much aware that there are a number of men that are having this experience as well. It's just a preponderance are female, and therefore I want to talk about it from that perspective as a female myself, so that we can begin to have an understanding of what the problem is, just as lay people. I'm not talking about professionals. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm none of those things. But what I am is a wise woman, and I can say that without any issues. I've lived life. I've experienced many, many things. I've had children. It's often said that when you have children, you've experienced death. So I've experienced death. I've dealt with raising children as a single mother. I've dealt with every aspect of this subject matter that we're going to be talking about today amongst peers, amongst people I know. In my younger years, I was extremely active in this, Fort Wayne, Indiana, early in my career, where I was a safe house for women who were being abused. And so I've had to deal with confrontations and everything else, from women fleeing and staying in my home with their children to men kicking in my door and all kinds of things that are just gruesome. So this is a subject matter that, while painful for me to even revisit, is necessary. And I'm going to deal with it for the next hour, part 2 of Battered Women, Battered Lives. And let me tell you why I took a break from transformation with Dr. Rick Howard and Elder Dennis Hatchett, both incredible men on the subject of changing mindsets and transforming into all of the good things that are available to us, and am dealing with this subject. I went to a funeral several weeks ago where I went to go with a young lady who was a family member. Now let me give you the history so that you will understand why I did this show. Sometimes you're like, well, what's her motive? What's she talking about? I'm talking about it because it's real and because it's happening in front of you. And many of you know, and you just choose not to address it, but it's here looking at you. How about that? Anyway, here's the history. Young woman, 32 years old, abandoned into foster care by a mother and raised in that system, had 3 children. At 32 years old, she finally was able to get a house. She was trying to get custody back of one of her children, the youngest, who was 10, I believe. And long story short, because this was all on the news, you can type it in, it's real. Her husband of, I believe, not even a year, she married a guy who had a criminal background with domestic violence and other acts, And she married this guy, which is not uncommon because if you don't know who you are, anything looks good. So she married him and discovered, oh my God, no, I didn't. Because as you will learn from domestic violence, if he did it to somebody else, he gonna do it to you. And so she had made up her mind that he was not coming with her to her home, to her new home. She's going to try to get her life together. Oh, she was a beautiful girl. I'm so serious, physically beautiful. And wanted to get her life together, had her son with her for that weekend that this occurred. The man came to her house. An argument ensued about him not moving in, something to that effect. I'm just going by hearsay now. But anyway, he stabbed her. And I won't even tell you where he stabbed her because you know where he stabbed her. And he took off running, covered with blood, and with this knife, jumps in her car, goes flying up Interstate 75 North, at which point karma kicks in. He rams a state trooper who's parked on the side, given a citation, jumps out of the car brandishing this knife, and boom, 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 he's shot dead. Predictable. Why would a state trooper observing this not be moved to pull out his gun? And he killed him. So in the span of 3 hours, the girl was stabbed and killed. He was killed. And now we have a funeral in a facility in Cincinnati, Ohio. It is my understanding that funds were not available to do a casket and all that. But it was, and so there were flowers, there was no urn, it was just flowers and people gathering there. And it was horrible. Okay, it was horrible. For me, it was horrible. Because I kept thinking about 32 years old, foster care, 3 kids, now they're motherless, family that just was not connected. And here she is gone, he gone. And we're all sitting there looking. And I said, you know what? I can't take this no more. I cannot take this anymore. And here's what I'm talking about today on this second segment. Many of us are at a crossroads in our life. This is how life occurs. You have incidences, you have occurrences, and then you have crossroads where I got to make a move, I got to make a decision. This is not looking the way I thought. Okay? Am I talking to anybody here? As I said, you all know I'm 65, going on 66. I've lived a long time, I've seen a lot, but some things I don't want to continue to see. I'm tired of looking at dysfunctionality in families. I'm tired of looking at dysfunctionality in male-female relationships, husband-wife relationships, girlfriend-boyfriend, girlfriend-girlfriend. What? I'm tired. I'm tired of seeing kids that didn't ask for any of the above. And now they're dragged into this mess. The little boy saw his mother stabbed. Now, the typical response to a child seeing something like that by the community is no response. But I'm here to tell you, if they don't get him into some kind of therapy, he gonna repeat it. He gonna be a monster. Why? Because imprinting on the human brain of trauma is real and sadly is repetitious, which is, here we go again. And I looked at the other children who were in attendance, I looked at the family, and I just said, I can't take this no more. I can't do this. So this show, this second segment is about me talking to you. Okay, isn't that what the kids do? Yeah. Me talking to you. And you identifying in some way what needs to happen in your life. It is a statistical fact that in this earth, as the Bible says, you're going to have trials and tribulations. And that includes abused, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, all the above, financial problems, job loss, sickness, unto death many times, family disconnectivity, on and on. This is the way life occurs. You can be a rich man and find out you got cancer and you're out, okay? You can be a wealthy woman and your daughter and son is strung out on heroin and opiates and just doing stuff you just can't believe is happening to you because they are now officially drug addictive. These things occur in life. Okay, you can't get around them because life is not fair, nor is it perfect. And I don't care who you are. If you live long enough, you're going to get old. If you live longer, you're going to get wrinkles. If you live longer, you're going to die. That is life. And so I'm not painting any kind of rosy colored glasses here today because you all been watching me for over 20 years. That's how long I've been on television. Over 20 years talking to people about things, about money. But again, when we talk about this issue of domestic violence and the fact that unless there is an intervention, and for those of you that don't know what an intervention is when people intervene. On Hoarders, there's interventions, and on other reality shows, there's intervention, where people as a community say, wait a minute, stop it. Rather than acquiescence, which is what we have now, which is, ooh, don't say anything about that one. Ooh, we need to pray about that one. No, if you're going to pray, you need to pray for her to leave, okay? Pray for her to leave. That's what you need to do. Because it is a fact that a man who has this problem is not going to get cured. It's a mindset. It's a power move. It's a positional move. And it became imprinted into him probably as a child from what he observed into the dynamics of his mother and his father, or, it goes back even further. Why did his father do it? Because the father observed it from his father and his, this stuff is so deep. It is. And there are no perfect answers other than, you see the door, boom, go there. All right? So, again, I determined that this is what I wanted to talk about and that I was willing to open up a taboo subject, challenge women to reclaim themselves and to get on with the business of life because, sorry, there's more to come. And for many, they can't even get through this because it just seems like it's endless. But I'm here to tell you today that there is an end to the sorrow and the suffering and the low self-esteem and the guilt and the shame and the fact that you've been so greatly disrespected. And for those of you that are of the male gender who are watching this, even if you're a good husband, you know men that are not. And may I suggest to you to stop endorsing them. Stop telling them they're nice guys when you know full well there's nothing about them. And those kinds of men, the nice guy, oh, he's so gentlemanly. He's Google him and pull up his history. Find out how many times he's been down the altar. Find out how many women, how many children. Got a relationship with his children? Probably not. Okay? Probably not, because the children are like, I don't think so. Okay? I'm just being real. So I put the challenge to men, and I'm blessed to have had a dad who was a man's man. Oh, he kicked some butt. If you start talking about his children and his wife, oh, you just crossed into the unknown, and it's just going to be ugly. But for those of us that were raised by him, he was so gentle. He spoke to my mother in a whisper. Can you imagine telling her he loved her in a whisper around us? We were like, oh, wow, I want somebody that whispers to me. Ain't gonna happen. That's you. You're really blessed. Okay? But he was an awesome man. My brothers are awesome men with their wives as well because they learned from him. And of course, my expectation was that, hey, that works, because I didn't know any different. I thought everybody did that. Remember, we're a product not just of our DNA, which we have nothing to do with. Those chromosomes, male, female, you're part of two families blending into one. You carry a whole bunch of identities and behaviors from that DNA, but you're also a part of your family and the influence of your family. I'm saying all this because, believe it or not, your family is unique to your family. What happened in your family is not necessarily what happened in mine. And we all bring to the table all these different experiences called family. And then you move into society, which is even a bigger experience. This constitutes your life experiences, those three things. Your DNA, which is your inheritance, your influence, your societal, and your family. So family is major, because family is where it gets down and dirty, where you actually get to see life through the prisms of your family. You get to learn what is acceptable and what isn't acceptable. And it's amazing as I look at families today, and I do look at families, as to what is acceptable and what isn't acceptable, and what they have been taught and what they haven't been taught. And is the father a supportive and loving father, or is he a controlling, domineering father where everybody marches to his beat, including his wife? And those patterns and practices are put onto everybody in that family. Where did he learn it from? Again, like I said, probably from his parents, from watching his dad, from watching his mom, from watching the society called his family. And so he doesn't think anything's odd about it, because that's the way he was raised. And until he hits the rock bottom in a crisis, which is over the cliff, splat, and has an opportunity to look at his life, which for many men is very difficult because of pride, which is, ain't nothing wrong with my life. I'm like, really now? Okay? Your wife can't stand you, the dog bites you, the kids don't want to be around, and you are going to be an old man by yourself, because this is how you do it. So I'm talking about this issue of domestic violence and why it has been so accepted by society at large, and why it is not acceptable, particularly today, when females are the majority of our population. This is globally. God does have a sense of humor. Children and females. Okay? I don't even have to go through the stats about what happened to the men. They're dead. They're incarcerated. They're sick. And by 70, here we are. So, and I don't like that either, because somehow I keep smelling karma. I just keep smelling karma here in this. This should not be the case. This should be a vibrant and long life, longevity, health, youthfulness. I'm not talking about, even if you are wrinkly, you should have a youthful spirit where you're excited about life. You're not trotting through, taking your blood pressure medicine, taking your breathing apparatus, worried about heart attacks, concerned about strokes. This is not the story that should say your name on it, but that's another show. What I want to talk about today is what happens if you're in this and how you get through this. And I'm going to give you stories. And if you can relate to them, fine. If you can't relate to them, I'm sure there's a story in there somewhere. But let's start with the big story. And it's not an uncommon story that I found out. And that had to deal with Ariel Castro, who was a crazy man in Cleveland that abducted, over a period of 10 years, he abducted 3 women and locked them up in his house. And where he proceeded to beat them, rape them, abuse them, and do all manner of horrible things in the neighborhood. He had a 3-story home in the neighborhood. And these women lived there. One of them gave birth. One of them had several miscarriages. But they lived there in terror of leaving him. And when it was all said and done, and one of them was able to break through, and the police got involved, and it was just horrible. You can Google it. It's under what's the encyclopedia online? But you can type in Ariel Castro and you can read about this man. But I need you to read about the women as well and what happened in the background they came out of that would allow them to be imprisoned by this man for all of these years. Can't leave the place, and why they didn't, and why they were considered battered women, okay? Because their minds were messed up, period. Why? Because of the cumulative abuse. Once he started, it just didn't stop. Now, the argument could be made, and certainly it's my understanding that various people had various opinions about why they didn't leave. They were afraid. They were terrified. I oftentimes wonder, couldn't the three of them banded together and just beat him up and run? What allowed this to happen? And when you begin to look at those types of situations, you can begin to have some level of understanding as to what happens when a woman is beat down and she doesn't have any more hope and she settles for much, much less than she should or could. As I said, this is a classic. Psychiatrists and psychologists, of which I'm none of the above, will be studying that case for decades. When the girls were freed and he was put in jail forever, he had killed himself 30 days after he was in jail. That's a good thing because I'm sure the prison population was going to kill him. So he killed himself. But the point being in saying this is that why did they stay? And why do women that are engaged and involved in this type of ongoing, persistent brutality, why do they stay? And we say this simplistically, not understanding the depths of the entanglement. What happens when you are beat down day and night and told that you are nothing day and night? And you don't have much to hold on to because your experience has said that women don't count for much. Your community has said, be grateful you got a good husband, just be quiet and leave him alone. What does that do to the mindset of the female? She's got children. She married him because most women will tell you, I just loved him. Or I just needed to have companionship. And I just wanted him to be a better man. Really. But that's real. Because women get tied into all kinds of situations over this elusive term called love. Now, what is love? Love is based upon your family's experience. Love is interpretive. Period. Love is not what I think it is for you. So we've got all these definitions, experiences, interpretations about love. And somewhere in the middle of love is, if I love him, I cannot love me. Because there's something counterintuitive about that. So she says, oh, he's the one. Shouldn't do any kind of reference checks, any type of credit checks, any type of job, anything that says, can we come together with a commonality? Because, and I say this, in cultures past, the whole issue of families arranging marriages was to make sure that craziness didn't happen. They sat down as families and made determination, is this going to be a good situation? Some of it was monetarily provoked. In fact, I say a lot of it was. But the bottom line is that the transaction was based upon family commonality. Because if two families had things in common, then there was a real belief that this couple could get along. See, getting along trumped love. That emotional, ooh-wee, he makes me feel like this. When I'm around him, I actually feel like I'm in heaven. No, you're not. You're not in heaven. You get ready to step into hell. Okay? So here you are. And so you make that leap. You get tied into relationship. It's usually a religious thing. So now you got God involved. Ooh-wee. You got to learn how to be molded and shaped by your husband. Forgetting that if God didn't mold and shape him, it's not possible for him to mold and shape you. Isn't that something? Isn't that something? Okay? And so women go down a path that actually started before they said, I do. Because I've talked to women that are in live-in situations. There's no covenant involved at all. And they are tied into his way of life. They're working and taking care of him. They are obedient to him. I'm talking about church ladies, okay? But you don't understand, Michelle. He makes me feel, forget that emotional stuff. That's what got you in the hole you're in now. Moving out of your feelings and not out of the truth, okay? So again, I want to talk about anecdotes, and I hope one of them maybe fits you. Let me give you one. You fell in love with him in college. That's an ideal situation because the majority of marriages among middle-class people they meet him in college. Or they meet him on their first job. They don't know much about life, but my God, I'm looking for love. And a lot of the things when you're young, you just look over because, we'll work it out. And you find yourself getting married, and it's a great, oh my God, wonderful wedding, wonderful all the above. And then the reality sets in, which is, not to be funny, but he snores at night, heavy, so do you, heavy. And after the first 6 weeks, things begin to settle in, and behaviors begin to become manifest, if they haven't been manifest earlier. But remember, you're in love, which is a form of insanity, I would surmise. And so here you are. You and him disagree, and bam, he says something that's not good, follows it up with an act, and you try to figure out what the heck is going on here. The act may not be punching you in the face. The act may be him tearing up stuff. And you're like, what's going on here? So you reach out to your mother-in-law who says, Johnny's always kind of being edgy like that. Just calm down. And you make the fatal mistake of calming down while Johnny is acting up. Okay? And I say fatal because not checked once, sorry, gonna come again, till it comes at you. Now, I wish I could give a different story. And some of you will say, oh, no. He hit me once, but he never hit me again. But he worked it another way, okay? So he's controlling you. He's running you. You work. You're giving him the paycheck. You don't know what's coming in. You don't know because he's handling it, okay? Now, this is in violation of everything I teach as the money lady, which is you're supposed to have your money, his money, and our money. You can't ever have a situation where you're into forced slavery, where for the sake of love and making him happy, you're giving him your whole paycheck. Now, that's not to say that you have the right to act crazy with your own paycheck. You have a collaboration. You agree what works and what doesn't work. You come to an understanding and you move on. But again, I'm trying to point out red flags so that you will be attentive. And if you are in a situation where you know And I don't have to use this television venue to tell you, you know stuff is whack. You know that when you close the door, the persona that he puts out to the world, nothing to do with what's going on inside the house, because military school is officially in session. If this is happening to you, I wish I could sit up and tell you that it's going to get better, that he'll grow up and work it out. Wrong. As Maya Angelou says, I love that woman, such a beacon of wisdom. If he tells you what he does, tells you what he is, believe him. Why is it that women think we have the power to change a man's behavior? That is such a level of arrogance and false pride. If the God that created him cannot compel him to a better standard, then how do you feel that you can? Really? Why do you feel that you have a responsibility to make him a better person or more compassionate? Oh, my husband says mean things to me. I said on the other show, I was with a very close friend of mine, and I went to her home to visit, which I rarely do. But we were in there chatting, and about an hour into the conversation, wasn't even an hour, he was in the other room, he came in, pointed to his watch, time to go. I'm hungry. She got to fix my dinner. And see ya. And I looked at her like, really? And she looked at me like, oh, you know how he is. No, I don't. I don't know how he is. I don't sleep with him. I'm here to see you, per your invitation. And I watched the dynamics change from her being a very upfront, powerful woman to being a mouse. And I did leave. And I never went back, because that is upsetting to me. I don't know what would have happened if I didn't leave. Because some people could say, well, you just should have stayed. No. I do not disrespect anybody's home or their marital dynamics. That's your man. You sleep with him. I'm just looking as an outsider. But what I saw was power and control and manipulation. And it told me that's not a place I'm going to be sticking around. I don't want to be in the fray. Have any of you all experienced girlfriends that walk on eggs when they're around their mate? And the children walk on eggs. And there's some levels and degrees of toxicity when you hear the tone that he talks to her. And before you say, well, you know, tone, no. The tone tells the story. It tells an outsider that there are no boundaries, and that even if he corrects his tone, his heart is not right. So let's go into some definitions, then I'll go on and give you some more stories. What is battery? And the courts will tell you it's packed on Monday, because Sunday and Saturday are the weekend, baby. And here we go. Battery refers to the act of inflicting physical harm upon a woman or her child, resulting to physical and psychological or emotional distress. That's battery. What is a battered woman syndrome? It refers to a scientifically defined pattern of psychological and behavioral symptoms found in women living in battering relationships as a result of cumulative abuse. Meaning, it wasn't one time. It can be on all levels. It could be how he talks to you. It could be the things he says to you, the unkind things he refers to you. When a man says to his wife, you're fat, and I don't like it, that's not funny. Because she could flip back and say, it's funny, I'm fat and I thought you were pregnant. because your belly, I have to believe something's inside there. People can go there. But if you have to listen to that every single day, everything you do is unacceptable. Everything you say is unacceptable. There are some men who want their wives to be silent because the Bible said, the Apostle Paul said, be silent in the church. Nobody takes the time to know what he was talking about when he said that, and the context that he was talking about when he said that. So some men read that, and because it's in them, okay, this is a heart issue. I don't want her talking. She needs to be quiet all the time. Unless I'm talking, she don't have nothing to say, no way, of value. This is your husband, your man, saying he don't want to hear you. Really? Well, what am I good for? Well, I'm going to tell you what you're good for. Cooking, cleaning, and bedtime. What do you know? That's your value. Well, for the record, if you had to monetize those attributes, oh my God, there are women that get paid serious bucks for being caterers, cooks. Okay, they just get paid lots of money. House cleaning, major business. Major business. A person clean your house for $200 a day. Keep your house spicky span. Okay, that's you. And I don't have to talk about bedtime because there's a whole industry called Las Vegas, Nevada. Where? Up to $2,000 and more a night. So I'm just trying to give you some context because you all say, you know, Michelle Gray, she'll say anything. No, I'm not. I'm just trying to put in perspective, okay? Because you're devaluing your worth, all right? You're devaluing your worth if that's your scenario. This is an actual, this stuff happens a lot where I don't want to hurt him. I don't want to be disrespectful of him and his person. So I'm not going to say anything. But you would allow him to disrespect your person and your position as his co-laborer and his wife, the mother of his children, or as his girlfriend with the hope of being a wife. Same thing. Red flags. Red flags. Why do we ignore red flags? Why? And this is a question my last guest, we didn't have an answer for really. Why do we ignore and think things are going to change or get better? Is this just a frailty of being a female? Is it? Is this what makes, because I'm going to tell you, I have not met too many men who are going to be subjected to abuse by other men. Oh no, it's going to be a fight in the house. Excluding football, baseball, sports. That's paid fights. But men are not going for that. You disrespect a man, you're done. You're done. He'll walk off the job. He'll walk off the church. He's walking. Like, are you kidding me? I'm not doing that. But why is it that we as females, regardless of our economic status, we feel compelled, once in a relationship, to see it through no matter what? Like I said, it's complicated. That's why I brought up about Ariel Castro and those 3 women. And incidentally, I know, and I can't prove it, but I know there are more women right now who are in basements, in cellars, who are in lockdown in these situations, that have been abducted, have disappeared. People thought they dead. They're not dead. They in the woods, under the house somewhere, trying to figure out, how did this come of me? And what can I do to make my situation different? Okay? How? And I'm just here to say I got a couple of things I want to deal with for women that are there. And I'm just saying to you that the covers are out. The covers are off. Folks know what you're dealing with for the most part. They may not be able to connect the dots initially, but sadly, as a community, most people will not get involved. Why won't they get involved? Because the tendency of women to leave this man up to 8 times before they actually leave him puts people in an odd position, which is, if I advise you or you reach out to me, I know you're going to go back to this nut. I know. I had an experience growing up in my neighborhood where there was a couple at the end of my neighborhood, and I was a teenager. I remember this. And this man used to whoop her butt. Very well respected man. And she'd go flying down the streets, crying and screaming, "Help me, somebody help me." And nobody would open up the door. Why? Because she went back. She would invariably find somebody, then she'd get herself together, and then she'd go back, and he'd do it to her again. The last I heard of this couple, he was still doing it. The son was now an adult, and you know their son had to be crazy from growing up in that kind of an environment. And she was, I'm not prepared to say she was in a mental institution, but it was something like that. And he apparently divorced her and had another woman in the same house. Now, before you say, well, maybe he treated her better, not. Patterns are patterns. Habits are habits. He was rewarded by driving her crazy. Now his son gets to replicate the same identical experience in his relationships, including marriage. Now, is there hope? Well, based on what I learned from my first show, the only hope is that you can get away and try to get on with your life. That you can do. And I didn't say it was going to be easy. And I didn't say that you would have to, how do I put it? You're going to go through some shifts. You're not going to feel the same. You're not going to look at people the same. You're not going to look at yourself the same. But I applaud those of you who have left, because now you have a choice in transformation, in going from that moth to that butterfly, that beautiful butterfly, versus the moth that you were in that situation. You now have a chance to transform into something that is amazing and beautiful. Beautiful. It's not beautiful looking at a woman who is depressed and has a fake smile on her face. Or you see him in a social setting and you know she's miserable. I'm not dropping any names, but I did look at TV on several situations and wifey didn't look happy. Okay, in fact, she looked like, if you don't get away from me. I'm not dropping any names, but you can connect the dots yourself. What you see is right in front of you. You're looking at it, which is, can I help you? Can I help you get away? What can I do? Can't do a thing until she comes to the recognition. That's called self-awareness. Until she comes to the recognition that she is worth more than he is worth. It doesn't matter what your economic position is. It doesn't matter what your name is, until you recognize that you're worth more than he is, and that your safety and that your peace of mind trumps everything. I pulled a document off of internet that I found to be very, very helpful. It's called My Emotional Bill of Rights. And I'm going to read it to you in its entirety because I thought it was good. The first thing is that forgiveness is optional. Okay? Moving on is priceless. Did you hear that? Forgiveness is optional. Now, I know about the power of forgiveness. I do. Because there's some things that you don't want to forgive them for. But you can't move on until you've let certain things go. because through that experience, you now know that you're strong and that you can beat this thing. Okay? Moving on is priceless. Number 2, I am entitled to RESPECT. Aretha Franklin sang that classic, respect. RESPECT. You are entitled to respect. It doesn't matter whether he thinks you are entitled or not. You know, for your own personal well-being and sanity, that you're entitled to respect. The third thing is, and this is important because this gets back into families and tribes, because remember I said the life story is you don't control who you're born into, you don't control your DNA, you don't control these things until you are at a place of recognition and maturity. But number 3 says, my family of origin doesn't have to be the family I identify with. Let me share with you a couple of things. I have girlfriends and associates whose families are, in my opinion, their birth families are just horrible. The funeral I went to, the birth family was horrible. You give away a child to foster care because you don't want to be bothered. Okay? You abandon a child because you don't want to be bothered. You raise a child in a violent environment because you cannot change it. The child makes a recognition as an adult that I got some issues and I got some problems, and it's all around my family because my family, there are families that cause and stir up trouble because that's just what they know. They create problems that didn't exist and would have you under the bus with them driving the bus. You don't have to be a part of that. It is okay to sever. And many people in severing, that's why they're all in California. They're like, oh, I gotta get away. And off they go to California. Never hear from them. In the day before we had cell phones, their whole families had went to Oregon, Washington, and California. And you never heard from them again because they didn't want to be bothered. They saw the toxicity of their family. They made a choice and they said, I'm out. You don't have to move to sever. You just don't have nothing to do with them. They don't talk about you like a dog. They talk about you like a dog when you were with them. But now you have peace of mind. You don't have to get caught up in the. So you say, well, how do you do that? Easy. You make a choice. Your decision is, I don't have to do this. I don't have to listen to that. I don't have to be a part of that. Therefore, have a nice day. But it won't be with me in your day because I'm doing something else. There are families that are so jealous and mean-spirited to each other. Maybe I'm talking about you. Maybe I'm talking about yours. But those families are rough. And if you're trying to get away from an abusive situation, you don't want to go run into them. Ooh-wee. You thought you were abused by a man. Now you get to be abused by your family. How you like that? Number 4, what happened to me was not my fault. So many people that I have talked to over the years felt that they were the cause of this man's behavior. Oh, no. You're not the cause of his behavior. Okay? That's another story for another show at another time, if ever. But just know that you are not at fault. So many women say, well, if I just could have been a better wife, if I just could have fixed him a better meal, if I just could have been more accommodating, and I'm like, oh no, baby. You are not the woman that he wanted. You were crisscrossed. You thought you could be the woman that he needs. No. That's not the way it works, okay? He didn't want you, and you needed him. Isn't that crazy? Number 5, being happy and with myself are my fundamental rights, okay? Being happy and myself are my fundamental rights. You have the right to be happy. You have the right to be yourself. Did God make a mistake when he made you? I dare say no. Okay? And it's not up to a man, and particularly not your husband, to fine-tune God's stuff. What happens in a good marriage is they learn to collaborate and to enjoy the ride. They do not engage in self-destructive behaviors. A man does not have joy in seeing his wife cry. A good man will tell you, oh my God, I don't want her crying. I don't want her crying, because if she's unhappy, the whole house is unhappy. That is a fundamental right, happy and being myself. And finally, you fill in the rest. What is your emotional bill of rights? Now, I'm going to say this to you in the remaining time I have, because believe it or not, the show is wrapping up. And I hope for those of you that had an ear to hear that you heard some things. Now, for those of you that don't have an ear to hear, I hope you change the station, because this probably wasn't for you. You're probably the one that's an abuser. But I'm saying all this to say to you, I know what this is about because I myself have experienced it. Oh, no! Yes, I did. Okay? Yes, I did. Oh, yes, I did. And I'm going to tell you something. You can't make them do nothing, and you can't make them be nothing. What you do want to do is leave a lasting impression on your children that, you know what? You don't have to put up with none of this, and get on with your life, because life is beautiful if you make a choice. So we're closing out with Destiny's Child singing, I'm a survivor. And for those of you that are out here at the crossroads, cross on over, girl. And for those of you men that can't make the move to do better, move out the way, because she's coming like a train. She's a survivor. And her children will rise up and say, Mama was something else. And I'm going to be right there saying, girl, you got it going on. I'll see you next time. We'll be back to our regular programming format with Dr. Howard and Dr. Hatchett on perfect transformation in the next show. In the meantime, I hope these 2 segments have been empowering. I hope they blessed you. For those of you in miserable relationships, don't you dare say God's in this. Please don't say that to yourself. Don't mix God in this. Just say that I'm moving on. And let God deal with your life. It's a good life. I wouldn't trade it for nothing. You take care. God bless you so much. See you next time. Bye-bye.